Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are here today to discuss how America went from that neutrality that we talked about in the last video to actually getting involved in this war. So this is from saying this war is a stupid war, we don't want to be part of it, y'all can go kill yourselves if you want to, we're going to do us, to us actually declaring war on Germany. And there's a lot of different reasons for this. There is no easy answer, this is why. If you do a quick Google search, it will tell you that the Lusitania sank, and that is why. The Lusitania sank 2 years before we declared war. So it was a part of it, but it was by no means the last straw, right? So we're going to talk about all this stuff today. By the end of this set of notes, you should be able to tell me the things that happened that led the U.S. to enter the war on the side of the Triple Entente, or what we call the Allies today. Okay. There are two standards we're dealing with. The first one is being able to look at text to look for reasons for why the United States entered World War I, especially the use of unrestricted submarine warfare by the Germans. An assignment you'll have in class after the video is the Zimmerman Note, which we'll talk about in a second. And the reasons why we entered to defend democracy and to protect our economy. The next standard is US 30. This is analyze the political, economic, and social ramifications of World War I on the home front. Now, guys, college professors could do an entire semester-long class on just that first part. So that we're going to hit a very broad overview, okay? Especially we're going to look at the role played by women and minorities, voluntary rationing, the Creel Committee, opposition by conscientious objectors, and Schneck v. the United States. Now, a lot of that we're going to hit in the next video, which is the United States at home. But some of that we're going to look at today. Okay, so in the beginning, right, when war is declared, Wilson quite clearly declares neutrality. He says, George Washington set the precedent for our country. Whenever European countries are at war, we stay out of it. It's not any of our business. But that neutrality is going to be tested almost from the beginning of the war with some of the stuff that both sides are doing here. On top of that, the Great War is extremely profitable for us. We are selling war goods to both sides. So, you know, it's good for us to be able to sell to both sides. It might be bad and might not be moral, right? Or it might not be what some would consider a good idea because it would keep the war going on for longer. But it helped our economy a lot. Okay. So at the beginning of the war, Wilson is going to urge people to stay neutral. He's going to say Americans should be impartial in thought as well as in action. It's not just about not doing anything that would be considered pro-Britain or pro-Germany. It's not even thinking something that would put you on one side or the other. Wilson did not want to see war set citizens against each other. You have to remember, we are, especially at this point, a nation of immigrants. Remember we talked about the hyphenates? There are German Americans, there are British Americans, there are Irish Americans, there are Russian Americans, and there are French Americans. And he doesn't want to see those cliques, those ethnicities start to fight amongst themselves back here at home. All right, so divided loyalties. We talked about this just a second ago. 1/3 of Americans were foreign born, okay? And a lot of themselves still think of themselves in the terms of their homeland because they were foreign born. German Americans, Russian Americans, Italian Americans, your heart is always where you're born, right? Where you're raised. My mother has, okay, she's in her 60s. Don't tell anyone I told you that, right? Okay. She's in her 60s. She was born in Massachusetts, and she has lived in Tennessee for over 40 years. And she still says she's a Yankee. right? Her heart, her culture, what she believes in, that those are very Yankee ideals. She very much thinks and acts like someone from Massachusetts. She does not consider herself a true Southerner. Okay. Now she calls herself a Tennessean sometimes, but she calls herself a Tennessean by way of Massachusetts. Okay. Now, most natural born citizens, okay, most people who were born in America are going to support the British and the French. Okay. They were our biggest trade partners. They bought more from us than anybody else did, mostly because they had the cash to do so. We're always going to try to lean towards the French because the French are the ones that helped us get independence in the first place. There's one more thing that's not on the slide that you do need to know. Our information about this war was coming via telegraph line, and the only telegraph line that connected Europe to America at this point was run through London. It was run through England. So England is controlling all of the information we get from this war, which means if they get news of something horrible that the Central Powers have done, they're going to make sure to tell us, right? But they might not be telling us all the horrible things they're doing in return. So we get a very one-sided story of how this war is going. We do not get the Germans' point of view. We do not get Austria-Hungary's point of view. So because of that, we're going to be more sympathetic towards the French and the British and the Allies, because that's the news we're getting, right? We're getting the news of all these horrible things everybody else is doing. You're going to start to see three very distinct opinions form, okay? The first one is what was prevalent, especially at the beginning of the war. Most Americans at the beginning of the war were considered isolationists. This was none of our business. Okay. The war was none of our business. We shouldn't be involved. We shouldn't even think about it. It has nothing to do with us. The second group, these are more the war hawks. Okay. These are interventionists. They said this war is our business because it affects our interests. So we should join the war to protect our interests. Now, these interests might be social, they might be economic, they might be political. They were different for each individual person, but they all saw this war as affecting America. And most interventionists thought we should fight specifically for the Triple Entente or the Allies. So those are the first two. And they're pretty easy to understand, right? They're either we should get involved or we shouldn't get involved. Then you have the fence sitters. Okay. These are the people that are called internationalists. Wilson was an internationalist. They thought the U.S. should play an active role in the world. Okay. They thought we should be a leader in world affairs. We should be telling people what they should be doing. But the goal of internationalists was not to support one particular side, although we did choose a side. The goal for internationalists was achieving peace. Okay, the goal here was this is still a stupid war. It still should never have been fought, but we need to find a way to end this war quickly, to bring about peace as quickly as we can without directly fighting ourselves. Okay, keep that in mind. Internationalists, they want to be involved in this war, but they do not want to directly fight because, again, we still think this war is a stupid war. We don't think this war is worth sending people off to die in. So you've got that fence sitter that, yeah, we should, but, we shouldn't go all the way. Right? We should, try to end this war, but we shouldn't be so involved that we're sending our own soldiers. Okay. Now, as an internationalist, Wilson is desperately going to try to keep the United States out of this war. It is not going to work. And it's not one thing that gets us into it. Okay. His efforts failed because there were just too many things piling on. So we're going to talk about how that neutrality is going to lead into us declaring war. Okay. The first thing is Germany starts to get desperate. And Germany gets desperate because of something called the British blockade. Okay. Britain blockaded Germany. Britain is going to use their massive, massive navy to essentially keep the goods out of Germany's hands, including goods we were sending them and sending to Germany. Okay. So not only is Britain getting desperate, we're getting desperate because we're trying to sell goods to Germany and we can't do it. Excuse the big lag there. I had to go find this picture and put it in the slide. This is the blockade of Germany. Okay, so if you look at Germany's coastline, Germany is mostly landlocked. It does have a northern coastline, but all of this coastline right here, see if I can make it. No, I can't. All of this coastline right here, that is all useless to Germany because it is all, the only outlet to the regular sea is Russia, right? That's the only place that could be sending things to Germany is Russia, and Russia is fighting Germany. So they are definitely not going to be sending them any type of supplies. So the only place Germany can get goods from is this tiny little coastline here. And because the United Kingdom had one of the world's biggest navies at the time, it is not going to be hard for them to blockade that small of a coastline. And they set up ships in these waters, and they basically make sure that no goods get in or out. Now, the international law, what countries had agreed to go by was you could blockade, but you could only confiscate contraband. Okay, contraband is anything that could be used to further the war effort. So like bullets or steel or weapons. But the British basically decided anything could be contraband. So Britain kept food, they kept medication, they kept clothing. So they didn't allow anything into Germany. And the whole point behind that was to starve Germany out. If they start starving to death, maybe they'll give up. Okay, so that's the first step. And Germany, it's going to be a very effective blockade for a while, and Germany is going to start to get desperate. Okay, in response to that blockade, Germany starts using U-boats, those Unterseeboots, okay, or the undersea boats, submarines. They start sinking any ship headed for any allied country. Okay, this is the German version of a blockade. They don't have a navy big enough to patrol the waters and keep ships from showing up. What they do have is submarines. So what the submarines can do is just sink any boat going into these countries, and eventually people will stop selling to them. Okay, so same idea, right? Starve out the British, starve out the French, keep them from getting supplies to keep this war going. And it as a fear tactic, it works, right? Now, they're going to start sinking any ships. That's called unlimited submarine warfare or unrestricted submarine warfare. On May 7th, 1915, a British passenger ship called the Lusitania is sunk off the coast of Ireland, it wasn't the first boat. It wasn't the first passenger ship that had been sunk. What was different with this one is that there were Americans on board. So for the first time, you have citizens of a neutral country being killed in this war effort. And it's not some like piddly little neutral country like Switzerland that doesn't have a powerful enough army to defend itself. It is the American citizens. It is the American government that's going to get mad at this. Now, once again, remember, we're getting our information from England. So England is going to tell us this was an innocent passenger ship. It was doing no wrong, and Germany sunk it. And we lost 128 citizens to this, some of them from very prominent families. There was a Vanderbilt who died in this, okay? In reality, this, even by the rules of warfare at the time, this ship was totally cool to be sunk by the Germans because it was smuggling weapons to the central country. It was smuggling weapons to the Allies, and by carrying weapons on that ship, it became a military vessel. So the Germans were totally By the rules of war, the Germans had every right to sink that ship. But we didn't know that, right? And Britain's not going to come out and be like, yeah, they're right, we were carrying weapons. Like, we don't find that out until much, much later. In response to this, Wilson tells Germany, you will stop sinking passenger ships or we will enter this war. Okay, that's the line Wilson draws. You will not kill one more American citizen or we will own you. Okay. So what he tells Germany is such a strongly worded ultimatum. It is almost a declaration of war in and of itself. Okay. And Germany responds to that by promising to stop sinking passenger ships. Now, they do accidentally sink the Sussex not long after, but it was a French ship, no Americans on board, so meh. On top of that, if they do have to sink a passenger ship, what they start to do is the submarine will surface, and they promise to give warnings that you can get just enough time to get the civilians off board. Like, not enough time to unload any weapons you might be carrying. But if you have lifeboats, they'll give you enough time to get the people in the lifeboats and far enough away from the boat that the vacuum won't suck you down. So they do promise to do that. At that point, the Lusitania is going to start switching a lot of American citizens from being isolationist to being interventionists. Okay. They're going to go from, this isn't our fight, not our problem, not our fight, not our zoo, not our monkeys. Okay. To this is our problem. We got to deal with this. And Wilson sees that writing on the wall. He sees that the U.S. cannot remain neutral. It's just not going to happen. But he does still want to be able to keep our men out of war. Okay. Congress passes quite a few bills in 1916 to prepare the country if we have to go to war. But Wilson's still hoping we can throw enough money at the Allies that they'll win without our troops having to show up. He passes the National Defense Act to enlarge the Army. He passes the Naval Construction Act to build more warships. And guys, we crank out the warships in World War I. It is insane the number of warships we make. 1916 also, we don't talk about this much in U.S. history because it's actually an 8th grade standard. But John J. Pershing, who will become the leader of the American forces in World War I, at this time, he's running around the Texas-Mexico border trying to catch Pancho Villa with his soldiers who are called doughboys, mostly because of the dust that covers them from the desert. It looks like they rolled around in flour. And Wilson calls him and his doughboys back. This is whenever he calls John J. Pershing back to the country, back to Washington, and John J. Pershing goes about starting the process of getting our military ready to fight this war. And then the very last straw, the thing that breaks the camel's back, okay, is the Zimmerman Note, which you'll be reading in class. Germany was running out of options. Okay, Germany knew we were going to get involved. Their only chance of winning is to either find a way to win the war before American soldiers can get to us. Now, their spies told them that if America entered the war from the time we declared war to the time we got soldiers there, it would take us a year. They were right. It took us a year from the time we declared war to the time we showed up. But one of the things that they didn't expect was they didn't expect us to be as ready to fight the war when we got there. So Germany's two options were, one, finish the war before we showed up, right? Or two, find a way to keep us distracted at home and keep our soldiers at home instead of sending our soldiers across the Atlantic to Europe. So Germany sends a telegram to Mexico telling Mexico that Germany would give Mexico assistance if Mexico declared war on the United States. Okay, so if Mexico declares war on the United States, our army can't go fight the Germans in Europe because we'd be fighting the Mexican army, probably in Texas and Arizona. They also, in the same note, tried to convince, or were told the person who the telegram was to try to convince the Mexican president to convince Japan to attack the United States, probably through the Philippines. And what that would do, if Japan attacked the Philippines, then our Navy would be busy fighting Japan, and we wouldn't be able to send our Navy to help the British Navy in the Atlantic Ocean. Pretty smart when you think about it. Like, it's pretty sound tactic. If you keep our military wound up focusing on our own territory, then we're not going to be able to go focus on Germany. The problem with this is British spies intercept this telegram. They decode it because they're not stupid enough to just write this and send it. It's a coded message. They decode it and then give it to an American newspaper. And the American newspaper publishes the Zimmerman note. And Americans everywhere are ready to rumble. Okay. This is basically a call to war. Okay. These are the Germans telling the Mexicans, we will pay you to declare war against America and kill Americans. And America's not about that. Now, to be fair, when this gets published, Mexico had absolutely no intention of doing this, right? Mexico comes out and tells us, well, this is not us. Okay. We did not do this. This is all on Germany. Be mad at Germany, not at us. And that's kind of what happens. Okay. After the publication, U.S. papers, popular sentiment is to go to war. So now, beginning of the war, most Americans were isolationists, not our zoo, not our monkeys, right? We're not going to be involved in this war. After the publishment of the Zimmerman note, most Americans are all about going to war. Let's do this. Now, Wilson tries a couple different ways to stay out of this war. He tries something called the cash and carry policy. That was whenever we were still trying to say we were neutral. Okay. He basically said we would sell goods to any country who could buy them, as long as they could pay in cash and come pick up the goods themselves. Now, this was pro-British because Germany didn't have the cash and Germany didn't have a navy to come get it. When the British Navy starts to get overtaxed, we switch to something called the Lend-Lease Act. This basically told people that we would lend. This is our declaring aside. We pick the allies. We told the allies we would lend them anything they needed, tanks, warships, whatever. We would lend them supplies, and we would bring the supplies to them so they didn't have to come pick it up. Okay. We also do something called the Destroyers for Bases deal, where we trade some warships to Britain, and we trade some warships to Britain for the rights to build naval bases on British colonies. We'll get to that later. Okay. On April 2nd, 1917, in response to the Zimmerman note and Germany's using unrestricted submarine warfare again, okay, because Zimmerman note was basically telling Mexico, we're going to start unlimited submarine warfare again, so get ready. So in response to those two things, President Wilson asks Congress for a declaration of war. He says, the world must be made safe for democracy. Its peace must be planted upon the tested foundations of political liberty. We are but one of the champions of the rights of mankind. We shall be satisfied when those rights have been made as secure as the faith and freedom of nations can make them. Okay, so he's not saying we're getting into this war because the Germans are evil. We need to go kill the evil Germans. He's saying we need to get involved in this war specifically so that democracy can be spread. Okay, we're not getting into this war to support Britain, who is a monarchy, to support France, who is a very loose democracy/monarchy thing at this time. We're not doing any of that. We're not getting into this war to support those sides. We were threatened. Our democracy was threatened. And because our democracy is threatened, we are entering this war to protect our democracy. Okay, that is a very firm line that Wilson draws here. He's not picking a side. He's defending America. It took Congress 4 days. Okay, on April 6, 1917, Congress votes to go to war. They declare war. Now, this is not a unanimous vote. It's close, but it's not unanimous. There are still some isolationists in Congress at this time. Okay, that is everything. Get ready to do some reading.